We've got lots to get to today. It begins with the performance of the night, and appropriately it came from the MVP. SGA gets his trophy in front of the home fans and then spent most of the night, JWill, reminding everyone why he won the award. You use the word surgical.
A half-court surgeon is what he is. I think historically we are watching one of the most efficient, gifted players in the game of basketball.
Just continuing to get it done all night long. Now, Anthony Edwards, we wanted him attacking the basket in this game, and for the most part, he did.
Yeah, I wanted him to be a playmaker. Look, he didn't have a lot of turnovers in this game, but OKC's defense is one of the best in the league.
It would turn on in the third quarter in a big way. Here's in the second. There's Edwards. He had 16 at the half. T-Wolves hanging around, but once again, Jay, it's just SGA unstoppable in the mid-range.
Well, it's him offensively, but also, listen, this team has one of the best turnover margins in single postseason history, and that's what OKC does, and that's when they pulled away.
Thunder by 8 at halftime, and then the third quarter is where it really got away. SGA would score 38 on the night on 21 shots.
I mean, Mike, is that a free throw merchant move right there?
It is. And by the way, when you turn it over as much as Minnesota did last night, those are just automatic buckets. I think there were 12 points off turnovers in that quarter, JWill.
It was a 35-21 quarter in total in that third. OKC turned it from a game to not so much a game. Throw it up, Kaysen. Throw it down, Chet. Holmgren going up and knocking it in again. Edwards, 32 points, but all things considered, a frustrating night. One in which he would skip talking to the media after it was over. OKC gets the win, 118-103, taking a commanding 2-0 lead in this series. And fresh off winning the MVP, SGA reminded us why he was, tying his playoff career high with 38 points, his 9th game this postseason with 30. That is tied for the second most in a single postseason in franchise history, behind only Kevin Durant, who had 11 back in 2014. And I will get Windy and Wilbon in a moment here, but I wanted you to make the point you made in our meeting, because I really want to hear what their reaction is to the question you brought up.
I think that this playoff series is over, Mike, and I firmly believe that the coronation of Anthony Edwards was premature, right? I think you saw a sizable gap last night, and I know there's a 3-year difference between a guy who's an MVP, who has a mental basketball IQ that is high and exceptional, and a young player who's on his way to potentially becoming that down the line, but there's still a ton of room of maturity and basketball IQ that needs to be increased in order for him to get there.
Well, we all proclaimed it last year in getting to the conference finals for the Timberwolves, and there's still some room to grow. I'm not about to disagree with you. And we thought, and we can still think, that this postseason is that time. But you have to do this in multiple postseasons. You don't get one. I mean, he's ascending, they're ascending, but last night was a step back for the team. And by the way, it can't just be Ant-Man. I know we'll get to this. It's got to be Julius Randle. Julius Randle has to have, you can't, nobody has 5 or 6 great games in a series. People just don't do that. Folks think that happens. It doesn't. But Julius Randle can't be in fourth quarter less. And then whatever his numbers were last night are completely
inadequate. Well, I'll give them to you. Julius Randle last night in 32 minutes scored 6 points. He was 2 of 11 from the floor, 0 of 3 from 3. Edwards was 1 of 9 from 3. Windman, you're there in the building watching it. The Thunder, surgical is the word we keep using here. Inevitable is sort of the way it feels. What are you seeing?
Yeah, they just have a formula that is devastating. Shea gets to the foul line. He gets to the mid-range. In this particular game, he got great offensive production from his 2 wingmen, Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams. And then defensively, guys, they are just frustrating the Timberwolves so much. Julius Randle is frustrated, and Edwards is frustrated. Jaden McDaniels is frustrated defensively. You can see it in their demeanor. They're not making 3-pointers. Then I do think that's costing them a chance to get close in these games in the fourth quarter. And I suspect that they eventually will, especially when they go home. But Ant-Man is continually looking at 2 and 3 bodies in front of him whenever he drives. I think they followed their offensive game plan. They really improved his shot quality, but they weren't able to improve his shot execution because the Thunder are so terrific on that end of the floor.
I'm starting to wonder about this when I watch the games with Chris Finch and their overall offensive strategy. You can't beat OKC when you're just playing 1v1 all the time.
No,
you can't beat them when you just 1v1 and then passes to threes. It doesn't feel like there are any sets, and there's no post side movement in order for them to get cuts to the basket. It just feels like it's ISO basketball all the time.
JWill, because it is, and it's not going to work. Not against that defense. There are too many great individual defenders and help defenders all the time confronting whomever has the ball. It was Julius Randle in game one. Obviously, it was Ant-Man last night. To just shut down somebody else. They have to have an ensemble effort, the Timberwolves did. So it's not going to work just because you improve the shot quality of Anthony Edwards. That alone is going to do nothing. So Minnesota has to react to everything you just said. I mean, it's tangible, though. It's seeable. Coach Finch knows, and his staff, they know what they're seeing. Now, what are they going to do in terms of execution about that? You have to have Ant-Man and Randall and somebody else. We just saw this in Oklahoma City. When they have J-Dub and Chet playing like that last night, they are not going to be beaten this season.
Chet Holmgren had 22 points last night. Jalen Williams had 26. Windman, give me a final word on this game, too, and what feels like a really commanding advantage for OKC.
You have to understand how well the Wolves were playing coming in here. They'd won 19 of their last 22 games. They demolished the Lakers. They demolished the Warriors. They hadn't lost 2 games in a row in 2 months, and they got slapped right across the face. I just want to point out the all-defensive teams were announced yesterday. Jalen Williams was second team. Lou Dort was first team. If I was allowed to vote for Alex Caruso and Chet Holmgren, I wasn't because they didn't play 65 games. That would have been on my ballot. And I don't think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of their top 5 defenders. Cason Wallace is probably their quote-unquote 5th best defender. That reality has absolutely been shell-shocking and sobering to the Wolves, and they've got to now pick themselves up and try to figure out some way to penetrate it on tomorrow night.
One last thing, and I think it's the biggest thing so far. It can't be after you beat the Lakers, Superman, Batman, Ant-Man, Lakers in 5.
No. Right.
It can't be talking trash to the streets. It can't be after you beat Steph, and that's LeBron at 40 and Luka doesn't play in the defense, right? And a team that doesn't have the depth. It then can't be after you beat Golden State that doesn't have Steph Curry with Jimmy Butler barking all the time. And then all of a sudden now you get towards a team, like Wendy said, Lou Dort, first team all-defensive team. Jalen Williams, second team all-defensive team. And then you don't show up to the post-game presser and you don't have anything to say. You just dip out. No, it can't be all bark and no bite. Not now. Not now. This is when we want you to do it now. This is where the level of maturity has to show itself, Mike.
Couldn't agree with you more. But that's the flaw of Minnesota. We saw some of it last year. Even when they got up, they go to Denver and win the first 2 games convincingly. What happens? That series gets extended to 7. So they still have those moments where Finch has, anytime you spend at this point with a team as veteran as Minnesota, reining in that and cleaning up those distractions, instead of just concentrating on how in the hell do we deal with Oklahoma City's defense. That's all they should be dealing with instead of some of this other stuff, which are signs of immaturity still.
Sometimes 23 years old, we forget, he's 23, and so it is what it is. We want him there's a part of us, I think, that wants him to take over the league.
They better. They better. That's what I'm going to say is the answer to that question. At the end of the day, did you close? The answer last night was an emphatic no. They did not close. Am I worried about them? Sure. Do I believe they can still win this series? Absolutely.
All right, so that's your friend, your partner in crime, Stephen A. Smith. You know how he is, right? I mean, what is you know what this city feels like right now? That was a punch it was more of a kick below the gut, if you know what I mean.
Below the belt line.
What is your sense of tonight?
There will be an urgency tonight that we haven't seen felt in Madison Square Garden. And beyond that, I mean, these sort of watch parties and looking like, Times Square on New Year's Eve in Manhattan. It's really cool, Greenie, even as somebody who has never lived in New York but has spent, oh my God, so much time here over 44 years covering sports and seeing the Knicks when they were relevant, the Patrick Ewing Knicks when they were relevant. But they have to win this game. And I think the Knicks will respond. I don't think they're weak-minded or fragile. They're not. Now, we can wonder that about Minnesota because we haven't seen that group necessarily prove it, although this group of Knicks hasn't done it collectively. But individually, Jalen Brunson has won championships, for those who forgot that he was at Villanova.
Sure.
And he's leading that group And whatever you want to say critically about Tibbs, I guess you can. You can talk about rotations. You can talk about lack of offensive creativity. But you're not talking about toughness mentally. So I expect the Knicks to have responded already, JWill, yesterday and this morning, and will respond tonight in kind.
You picked out a play that you think was sort of a perfect illustration of how the Knicks let that game get away.
Well, they just had so many miscues down the stretch. And here's one defensively that Tibbs and personnel, coming off the challenge, which they were able to get turned around, right? Like, this is a moment, a stoppage in time where you have to get the personnel properly on the court. Look at this play, guys. You're going to be blown away. So, time situation, 136, 135, 20 seconds left to go in this moment. And look at the versatility in the court. McBride, Hart, Bridges, OG, Mitchell Robinson. You can switch everything. 20 seconds, switch everything. Look at this situation right up here in this corner, okay? It's gonna be a little screen. Off the screen, what you're gonna see is a little action off the screen. Boom, he's gonna switch. He's gonna switch. He's gonna go right to there. Perfect, nice and easy. Watch it, Mike, watch that quadrant, okay? As the play develops, let's go slow. Ball gets inbounded. Oh, they switch, right? You see the switch. Now, great. If you're switching everything, now pay attention to what's about to happen when we get to this next part of the play right here. Dribble handoff. You're switching everything, right, Mike?
Yep.
You're already in it. You're switching everything. Now, 19.7 seconds left to go in the game. Here we go. Switch. They don't switch. Why are you not switching? Why are you not switching? Why are you not switching? Rotating over from the weak side. Boom, dunk. They're up 3. Those kind of miscues. Stoppage in time. Tibbs, somebody in the court. Hey, guys, we're switching everything. No miscues. Now, I don't know if Mitchell Robinson
leads me to that question,
just had a brain fart, Mike,
Mitchell Robinson
or what?
had that brain cramp there, or when he just sort of plays free safety and gets caught no place.
But that can't happen, Mike. That can't happen. And by the way, when you have that much stoppage in time, who's bringing these guys together? Where's Tibbs saying, yo, switch everything?
To some degree, and we can get Windman until we have him back here in OKC. We were talking yesterday about how Rick Carlisle pushed a lot of really good buttons the other night. One, going small late in that game, got them a lot, pulled Mitchell Robinson away from the basket, got them several open looks, uncontested looks at the basket late in that game, which you wouldn't expect. You demonstrated yesterday one of those that led to a layup. And
against probably the Knicks' best defensive lineup.
Yes.
So obviously they had counted, they'd already anticipated some of this, had their best defensive lineup on the court for what Carlisle was doing.
Windman, what is your sense of tonight's critical Game 2 Pacers-Knicks at the Garden?
Yeah, I thought the Knicks did a lot of things well in Game 1. I think most importantly, other than at the beginning of the game and the very end, they controlled the pace. And to me, who's controlling the pace is who's winning the fight. And the Pacers were able, to speed it up, but only after the Knicks built a big lead playing at their speed. I thought Karl Towns played arguably his best game of the postseason. He was able to be really effective against the Pacers defense. And Jalen Brunson was dominant when he was on the court, and when he was off the court, the Knicks did well. I thought when he went to the bench with foul trouble, that they were able to extend the lead at that one point. And I don't think they were really stressed out by the Pacers' speed until the very end. So the Knicks have some stuff to build on going into tonight.
I was going to say also, look, they have to pick people up. The point of attack has to be higher for three-point shots in those kind of game situations at the end. I think the Knicks are going to actually beat up on Indiana tonight. I think the Knicks are a really good team. They can play fast, but you have to play fast in moments that are conducive to the way that you actually play.
And quickly,
they don't play like the Pacers fast all the time.
The Pacers are used to doing that an entire game.
That's not the way the
Every
Knicks play.
single game, the Knicks are not.
Yes.
How much of an advantage, and we only have a moment here, but we can spend some more time on it, the advantage in depth that the Pacers have in that. This is a 53-minute game the other night, 48 minutes tonight. As it goes on, that depth becomes more and more important.
That's a question for Tibbs, right? Now, you're talking about 8 men playing at least essentially 10 minutes a game versus 7 for the Knicks. Is Tibbs willing to stress that? His history, JWill, says no, that he's not going to do that. Let's see how, and by the way, we're talking accumulation.
Yes.
The Knicks have had tough series already against Detroit, against Boston. What is the accumulation of minutes and exertion, not just in one game, but over now 3 series?
And those defensive breakdowns were mental fatigue instead of physical fatigue. It was different.
The exact point Windy was making before the series began, that Rick Carlisle was already looking ahead to games 5 and 6 and 7. We'll see. The Knicks need to win tonight, or we may not get any of those games.